Hey everybody, it's Jon Meyers from Right Better Together. Look everybody, it's Emily Brooks and we're interrupting your YouTube viewing again for something.
Yes, we are doing a free live webinar on
Oh.
November 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern or 8 p.m. Central. And we always talk about write better together and get out of your bubble. And that's what we're doing by inviting you to talk with us about story. So, our topic is story. Is it what you think it is? Why do we tell stories and how do we tell them better?
It's free and it's live and like I'm glad we interrupted what they were watching cuz that's cool. I'm going to be there.
I am too. And we'll get to meet you and talk with you. And I'm so excited about that. So, if you want to come, you can RSVP by going to writebettertogether.com/contact and then in the subject box putting in RSVP.
Yep, and then we'll send you a link back out for the that where you grant us permission for your face to be on there and we'll take it from there.
Yep, can't wait to see you.
Welcome everybody to Right Better Together. I'm Jon Meyers. Hey, look everybody, it's Emily Brooks.
Hello, Jon Meyers.
Hey, whoa, how are you feeling these days?
Tired, a bit nauseated.
You have more color to you than I do today.
Oh, thank you. um Yeah, feeling a little better, but why do I feel tired and nauseated?
Hmm.
Um, because I'm having a baby.
Ah!
Oh my goodness.
Finally,
Finally can
finally,
announce it.
we're
Holding that secret in for 2 months.
and better yet, we're finally gonna have a producer. All you have to
Oh.
do, all you have to do is raise her right, and I'm believing it's a girl, even though there's no evidence of that.
I forgot you were going to ask me that. I was like, "Oh, what's happening?" He's Well, yes. So I actually am feeling better though. We're 12 weeks today as of the date of recording, not the date this comes out, because I don't know when this comes out. When does this come out? 2 weeks? November
November 5th, next week.
November 5th. Yay. Um, so I'll be 13 weeks by then. Due in May, my favorite month.
Oh,
So
early
we're
May or
very
late May?
May 13th,
Oh, you have a specific day.
which is, well, you know how it is.
No, I don't.
Um,
I've never had a baby. I don't
They
know
they
how this
always give
is.
you a specific day, but it's never like it's probably gonna there's like a huge window. Um, my niece and nephew, their birthday's on the 10th, and so it could be on the same day.
Oh, do you want joint birthday parties or you want your
I
child to
don't
have
know
her
because
own birthday party?
there's already twins. Like I feel like that's a lot of birthdays on one day.
If
But
baby
they're old enough that I think it would be fine.
if baby Brooks comes out and he's a boy, he's gonna be like, "Why did you keep calling me a girl on this episode?"
Yeah.
Congratulations! I'm so
Thank
excited.
you.
Is Winnie
Thank
in the room
you.
with you? How did she take
No.
this news?
Oh, I think she's gonna hate it,
It's not a
sadly.
it's a baby.
No, I think she's gonna hate the
Oh,
experience
hate the
of it.
news.
Yes, because she doesn't like loud noises,
Oh.
and she also gets super jealous.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's gonna be a interesting journey for Winnie.
So this is so wild because there's actually 3 of us right now on camera.
There is.
When
That's so
when
strange.
does the baby start kicking?
My midwife told me about 16 weeks, but it could be a little later.
Does your midwife know she's on a podcast?
No.
So for another month and the baby will start kicking. So then we can ask her questions. Kick once for yes,
And
twice for
she'll be
no.
the first okay, you got me saying she, that's ridiculous. They'll be the first listeners of every episode.
True. So that she'll be perfectly trained
And
to.
potentially the first listener response.
It's also true. She'll be perfectly trained to be the producer then, because she'll know what nonsense to cut out. No, we don't cut the no. Baby Brooks, we do not cut out the nonsense. If you're
Right.
listening to this,
Right.
we leave the nonsense in. Well, I'm just so happy. This is such good news.
Oh, thanks. We will find out if it is a baby girl or baby boy in the second no, the basically New Year's week, the week of New Year's.
And you want to know?
Yes.
Are you going to do those things like where you take a knitting needle and hang it from a piece of yarn over your belly, and if it goes in a circle, it's a girl, and if it goes in a cross, it's a boy? Are you going to do all those things?
No.
I would, man.
Well,
It is like, I don't want you to divulge your husband's birthday if he doesn't want you to. But is May 10th near your husband's birthday? I know it's
it's
not
about
near
two.
yours.
It's like 2 months off.
Oh, well, good. So it's not like, so it'll be all three of you. That was my point. All three of you are nice and spread out, so there's no
Hmm.
lumping it together. Well,
Yeah.
that's good. I like that. I approve.
Oh, well, good.
Okay, that's it.
The
We
end.
we couldn't have done it without you, Baby Brooks. We couldn't have done it without you.
So we do have things that we're talking about today.
Oh,
We have quite the list.
oh.
Um, I guess the baby is the guest. I don't know. Uh, we just finished a weekend at the Southern Festival of Books,
Yay.
and we met a lot of really interesting people that sparked so many thoughts and conversations that we wanted to talk about it.
Yes,
And
it was
so
wonderful.
the working title of this episode is I'm a Writer, but
Dot, dot, dot.
because that was pretty close to the answers that a lot of people gave us. So we'll dig deeper into this for our big idea, but before that we're going to have listener responses. We're going to give you all a call to action at the end of our big idea. We're going to have a Hey Jon Meyers segment where I teach Jon Meyers something.
It's not about
And
babies, is it?
no.
Good.
Jon Meyers hates babies.
No, I do not hate babies. I want a baby. That is not
Obviously
true.
you don't. We know that's not true.
However, now that you brought this up, please, like, when you know how the guest is in the middle circle, please
Yeah.
don't put like the ultrasound in the middle
Oh no,
circle of
you
this
already told
episode.
me that you hate ultrasounds.
Oh
So
yeah, I can't see ultrasounds. Not just of babies, of of anything.
even like the black and white ones where it just looks like
Yeah,
nothing.
I thought they were all black and white because I haven't looked at one for 100
Oh,
years.
you shouldn't look at the new ones.
I will not.
Yeah.
All right, continue.
uh what was I? Oh yeah, and then we're gonna play a silly game of the final act.
Not involving ultrasounds. I will meet the baby when she pops out. I don't need to see pre-pictures.
So we got out of our bubble
Yeah, we did.
together for 2 days at the
For
Southern
2
Festival of
days.
Books in Nashville.
That's more than since we started the podcast, that's more than I've seen you. Because we were in the same booth for 9 hours and then for 7 hours or maybe 5 hours. Where like at WriterCon, we saw each other 10 minutes here, an hour
Yeah,
here, 2 hours there, 10
yeah,
minutes here. But this was, um, I learned so much about you.
yeah. I learned a lot about you too.
Yeah, like what?
You don't like waiting in lines.
True. Yep. Because it's non-productive. Well, you helped me figure out why. I didn't know why I didn't like
Oh, and
waiting
I
in line.
asked.
Yeah, and it's not because I'm impatient. It's because it's non-productive time.
It's so funny to me because I have such an opposite personality type. Like I do often feel guilty if I feel like I'm wasting time, but I also will take yesterday because I am pregnant. I took a 3-hour nap. And
Well, that's different than getting in a 3-hour line.
To me, it's productive to get food because food is fuel. That's how I see it.
True, and you could say I could make conversation with the people in line in front of me and behind me, which I
Sure.
do, but sometimes they don't want any of my nonsense. They're busy doom scrolling on their phones.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I learned that. I also learned, and so I'm gonna bring this up. I'm gonna pick this scab open. This
Oh.
this is not on my
Ugh.
list.
Ugh, don't say
So
that.
so
I can't
I
believe you're okay with saying that.
I'm gonna rip this Band-Aid off. How is that better?
Mm.
Um,
Um, our friend, our friend Kaylee has a phobia of band-aids, so let's.
uh, oh. Oh my goodness.
Kaylee, who visited us at the
Yes, we
festival,
saw her
hates
in
band-aids.
person. Thank goodness I didn't have a Band-Aid on. Um, no, so first of all, I'm sure I apologize in person, but I say something that bothers you, and I've said it twice that I know. I've probably said it 20 times, and I'm like, do you like I do it out of kindness? Do you want me to go talk to these people because you're more anxious than I am, and that bothers you, even though then like I'll go watch an episode where you talk about your anxiety, or I read your blog where you talk about your anxiety. Maybe you're just more open about it, but you pointed out, my point of this is you pointed out that we're anxious about different things,
Yeah.
and that was it. So that
Do you feel
reframed
like
how
that's true? Because I don't want to just put that on you either.
I think I'm anxious about less things, but to say I'm not, and so it's reframed how I think about it. So I mean that's a major pivot point in my life that happened in that in that booth.
Yeah.
So this morning online, someone said I was anxious about something, and they also tagged me in the thing they were anxious about because I was also involved in that thing, and I'm not anxious at all about it. and so and it surprised me that he was, and because we've both talked about, like in with the episode with Renee, you hit send and you go and you're on to the next project, right? And I'm like it was something that we both worked on early, not together but separately, but at the same time early in the summer. I'm not anxious about it at all. And so that it just made me think that different people are anxious about different things. And
Mm-hmm.
um uh I guess I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I no, that's good. I think to like maybe explain where I was coming from, I think I just don't like people to assume that I'm going to be anxious about something, even though like at the same time I was grateful for the question, right? Like I appreciate people considering that I might be anxious about something. But with generalized anxiety disorder or panic disorder, it's like it's not that I'm necessarily anxious about things. It's that anxiety can just come upon me at times. I may be like kind of concerned about something and then I can just push through it. But it's not like I'm always going to be anxious about this thing. It's like right now I'm feeling anxious about it, but tomorrow I
Oh.
might not be.
See,
Um,
this is an important conversation for us to have in front of everybody because I think we model like I you're modeling how to explain this to someone, and I'm modeling how to receive it for people that
yeah,
are in this real life situation. It is it that you don't like the label? Because both times it's happened where I've noticed it, I lay
maybe.
I put the label on you.
Maybe it's because I think what you said was like because you have anxiety or something. And maybe it was that was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. Because like I say that like, oh, I have anxiety, but I
Uh,
guess I
So
don't know. Like,
it's
isn't that
okay if you
silly?
say it, but you shouldn't. Someone should. I mean, I shouldn't label anybody with anything. So
But isn't that silly that it's like, well, of course, like I say that all the time.
I mean, my initial response is I just don't want to make her mad. So like, I'm like, I cannot say that. And but you do discuss your anxiety all the time, and
Yeah.
so it was I don't know.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
out there.
know. I think something that my husband does really well that I think could be, I don't know, it could work for other people too, is he underplays my anxiety rather than like he's not like "Oh my goodness, are you okay? How like are you going to be okay with this?" He just assumes that I can do it, and then if I am anxious and I'm like, "I'm feeling really anxious," he's like, "Okay." He's not like, "Oh my goodness, what can I do for you?" Like, or, I mean, he'll ask like, "What can he?" He'll help me out, but he's not mean. But he doesn't like overplay it either, if that makes sense. He doesn't over coddle, and
But
it's actually helpful for me
that makes
because it,
sense.
yeah. So
But you were
that's just
leaving, and
some
there were
advice for
people.
people.
No, that makes sense. I was trying to think how I'm trying to defend myself now. Why didn't I do that? Well, first of all, I didn't know about it till just
Well,
now.
no, because here's the thing. I do appreciate you considering that. Like 100%, I appreciate
Right. I appreciate that you appreciate that.
it.
I think it was because you were leaving, and one of us had to go talk to these two people,
Yeah.
and so I was like, "Do you want to squeeze this in?" I was trying to be considerate, or do you want me to talk to him after you leave? But you had a
Which I
better
did
connection
appreciate.
with him, so I think it obviously worked out better.
Yeah, I
Okay.
appreciate it.
All right. So that's one of the things we learned
Yeah,
at the
we learned a lot
festival.
about each other. Yeah.
What's the next observation that we had?
Do we want to jump to listener responses?
Sure.
This whole episode basically is going to be about the Southern Festival of Books. But if you weren't there, it's fine because this will apply to you. We had tons of people come see us, people we didn't know, people we did know. So we got to see Kaylee, who I just mentioned, who helped us with her book cover. We saw Bethany Hale, my sister. And then we saw Becky from WriterCon.
We saw Becky from WriterCon in Oklahoma City. She was in our master class, and I didn't
Yeah.
recognize her at first, so I felt bad. But then she didn't seem too upset. So
Yeah, it was just really good to see her. And she's doing things. She's starting writing groups and stuff. So I was super excited for her.
yeah, that was great. And plus, you were she wasn't in a convention center in a hotel, right? So
Yeah.
like, if you saw me at Kroger, you would, but would she recognize me if she saw me at her hometown Kroger? I don't know,
No, that's so
maybe.
true. Is it's you expect to see certain people in certain places, and when you see them outside of that, it's like, who is that? Why do I know who that is? Or maybe you don't know at all.
True.
We also saw Amy McConnell and Sarah Weigel from Writer Fest, who have
Two of
been
our
previous
favorite
guests.
people. Yep.
And by the way, all of these people most of them made videos for us. So we asked them, why do you create and/or what is a book that made you cry? So if you want to see those, go to our Instagram, Write Better Together, and watch those videos because they had some great answers.
And one person cried. Ashley
Yeah,
Hargrove.
Ashley Hargrove, um, did some voices for us and did some dramatic crying. So Ashley came all the way from Alabama and she gave us posters of her upcoming film that she wrote,
Vampire
um,
comedy full of puns.
called Marriage Bites, which we've
Correct.
talked about before because she was looking for funding, and I think she's still looking for funding. And there's info on our Facebook about that if
Yes,
you
there
are
is.
interested. Also, we didn't mention, but Amy and Sarah, Writer Fest is coming up. And so, after, we just finished the Southern Festival of Books. Well, the Writer Fest is coming around the corner. So, you can see us there. If you missed us at the Southern Festival of Books, you can see us at Writer Fest. We won't have a booth, but we will be attending.
Yeah,
November.
we're not speakers there, but we will be there. Grab us in the hallway.
Hmm.
If you have our book, we'll
It will
sign it for you.
be it will be at Belmont University on November 22nd to 23rd. So you
I
still
told
have time. And Amy and Sarah also offer discounts for our listeners. So in the episode that Sarah did with us, so look for that.
I told people, because and we sold so many books. We sold so many books, people, that we forgot to sign like half of them.
Yeah.
We're like, we'll take your money, but then we forgot to sign
There
their
was so
book.
much going on.
But there were people that had, because there were many, many books there that had exceeded their book budget already. And so I told a lot of people, we'll be there. So if you get our book, on Amazon next week after you
Mhm.
get paid, then just bring it to Writer Fest and we'll sign it.
Yeah, there you go. So we want to talk about the conversations that we had with writers and what came from this. So if someone came to the booth and they looked directly at our book, so like our book was like front and center, and that was the first thing they looked at, and you could kind of see their eyes lingering on it, I would ask, "Are you a writer?" And I kid you not, 95% of these people went, "Well,
I
I'd like
am,
to
but
be."
or
Yeah.
I am, but I'd like to write more, or I used to be.
Yeah. Or yes, but I'm not writing right now, or anything similar to that. Like that was what people were saying. Nobody had the confidence to just say, "Yeah, I'm a writer." Which is what we talked about in our confidence episode.
Yeah, I'm a pretty good judge of crowds, and so I would say the crowd was 18 to 20,000 people, and I would say we talked. I tried to figure out how many people we talked to just by the hour. I'd say we talked over 300 people. And I don't mean just walked by
Really?
it. Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
not just walked by us, but we maybe I
Wow.
don't know. Let's just say 300.
I'm not a good judge of people because I could not tell you a number. I wouldn't have
And
guessed that high, but goodness.
And what Emily just said was 100% true. 2 people said, "No, I'm not a writer." But
Yeah.
and then maybe 10 people actually had books there, right? And so they're like, "Yes, I have this book." And then they whipped out the book and showed us. 99% of them are like, "Well,
There
dot,
was
dot, dot."
also a category, to be fair, there was a category of I'm not, but he is, or I'm
Oh,
not,
yeah,
but
true.
she is. And then the person who they were pointing to would just kind of nod, like,
Yeah,
and
that's
shrug,
true.
like, I guess.
Spouses and moms and daughters
Yeah.
and like that. Yep,
Yeah.
true.
But okay, I'm going to bring it up because one of the most confident writers that we saw these parents come with their daughter. I'm assuming it was her parents,
It was.
and they said she's a writer and had wrote this book, and I we bought it. The Tale of Two Fawns: A Unique Gift of Destiny by Lauren Scott. It was her 11th birthday when she sold this to us. And there's so much confidence in this girl who was like, "Yeah, I'm a writer. I'm 11 and I have published this book and I am selling it to you." And like, I just think that's so wonderful.
On the second day, towards the end of the second day, she came back with her parents, and I was talking to a mom and a daughter while they walked by, and I held up this book to the new mom and
Yes.
daughter and was like, "This can be you. Like, look, this is real. This is a real book. This could be you." And then Lauren, she was walking by at that moment. She's like, "Gee, I wonder who wrote that book." So it was perfect timing. And then we talked about the Baker video, and I started crying, and then it was all over.
Oh. Yeah, so what this brought up for me. So, okay, before I say this, the other category. Okay, so everybody who came up was like, "Yeah, I'm a writer, but." And then we would dig deeper. So why not? Like, why aren't you writing, or why aren't you a writer? And a very large number of people would say, "Well, I'm a perfectionist. I could never finish anything." Well, this little book by Lauren reminded me, because they said that she wrote this for school, right? They had a project in school where they wrote a book and then they bound it. Well, we had the same project when I was in school, when I was her age. And the first year, I started a story about, I think it was stingrays. And I wanted to write a story about stingrays, as like a little family. I don't remember anything about the story except that they were stingrays. Worked on that, rewrote it like 100 times. Didn't finish it that year, so I tried again the next year and I wrote a story about a lemur that escaped from the zoo, and a little girl had to take care of it until the zookeepers could come and get it back.
Oh.
Well, I didn't never finished that one.
But then 20
So
years later, you wrote a log line about a monkey that escaped
that's true. It didn't escape, it was escaped,
It was escaped.
by the zookeeper.
All
But
right, continue.
but I didn't finish that one either. So my sisters all have their little bound books that they wrote for school, and I don't, because I was such a perfectionist that I never finished either of those projects. And then I started writing, but it told me I want to write. And so I started writing a novel, because when you can't finish a short, tiny book, of course, you need to write a full length novel, full length fantasy novel. And I wrote that for about 5 years. And here's the thing, because we talked about this a little bit last time. I think there's a point where you need to stop a project, right? Because either it's just not working or you need to just say it's good enough. But when you're growing as a writer, I think it was just that every draft I realized I'm getting better and I need to make it better to fit what skill I have now. Probably would have been even better if I had just started a new story, because then it would have been fresh. I wouldn't have been just editing the same story. I'd be completely starting over and learning new skills. So that's just a recommendation for young writers. Keep writing new stories. They You won't run out, but that perfectionist level can just keep you from continuing, and you just get stuck and you're like, it's never going to be good enough. But you said you don't struggle with this. So I'm curious either why you think that is or how you deal with it.
So, all you can do is do your best. And so my best today is better than it was 10 years ago. My best today is better than
Mhm.
it was before we wrote our book, because you made me a better writer just from the editing process. But on any given day, all you can do is do your best. And
Yeah.
so I don't have that. I'm not going to go on a tangent about AI, but this morning so we talked to 300 people over the weekend. This morning there
Yeah.
were 23 people in this group, and they were the same as the 300 people that they hadn't finished. They had never finished a script or whatever. If only I had this other tool, I would have finished. No, you
Right.
wouldn't have, because you still don't have the confidence to think. You already have tools that didn't boost your confidence. Why is this new
Exactly.
tool going to boost your confidence? And so that's all I'll say about that. And so it's a confidence issue. It's not a technology issue. It's not a thought processing issue, because people can tell you like a cogent premise of their story or whatever, but then to actually get it down on paper, you pointed out something to a couple of people. It just seems more permanent, and
Yes.
so and it intimidates them because they think it has to be perfect, and then that leads to my takeaway. But I'll let you finish your takeaway first.
Well, I think a few things about perfectionism. So, one, yes, it feels so permanent when you put something on the page. And so I have to tell my students all the time, like, revision is writing. Like, when you're writing, there's a quote by, I will try to remember it and put it on the screen.
Becky.
But she said, she says, writing is throwing sand into a box so that later I can build sandcastles.
Oh,
So that first draft is just a bunch of sand, right? And it's okay if it's not perfect. And then revision is improving it, improving it. But again, it's going to be what it is, and it you may not ever think that it's perfect, but it's because partly because you're getting better. The
and it
other
does.
thing that
Okay. I was just gonna say
the
it
other
doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be the best you can do,
right, right.
and that's the best you can do. That's great.
And have a growth mindset and believe that your next will be better. So, well, I think I mentioned this in one of the chapters in our book, that if you keep rewriting the first chapter or the first 10 chapters of your novel, you'll only learn how to write the beginning of a novel. You won't know how to write the middle or the end. And if you write the beginning, middle, and end, but then you don't revise, then you only know how to write a draft. You don't know how to write a complete work. So if perfectionism is actually keeping you from finishing a project, then you're not going to grow as much as if you had just written that novel and then learned how to revise it. And then you put that project aside and then you start the next one, because each one's going to get better and better. But It's like I heard a gardener say once on it was some documentary. She was like, if you're a potato farmer and you have 6 years of potato farming experience, that actually means you've only planted potatoes 6 times, and that's not very that's not very much. I think you can you can write a novel and that's fantastic, but it's like Ray Bradbury says that you have to get like that million words out. You have to keep pushing on to new projects instead of hyper fixating um, and getting stuck on the one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And Mr. Potato Farmer or Mrs. Potato Farmer, the if they came from a family of potato farmers, they saw the elder farmers and
Yeah.
modeled things for them. But some people aren't. My uncle always wanted to have a blueberry farm, and it was huge. Like it was 800 bushes, I think. And
Wow.
he was an engineer. He I'm gonna buy I'm gonna buy a blueberry farm, and he did, and he learned the hard way. He learned the hard way, but
That's awesome.
he was also a genius, and he studied up and everything,
That's
and
awesome.
he probably did it, I don't know, for maybe 10 years, and then he went back to engineering, but he got it out of his system, and he did
Yeah.
well. It was super successful.
Yeah.
He sold it for
I
a
love that.
profit, I'm sure.
I love that. So what was your point on perfectionism?
So your biggest takeaway was perfectionism. My biggest takeaway was who did this to you, who squashed
Yes. Yeah.
you, and who made you a perfectionist. And it's so it's interesting because um that that was a big common denominator between these writers slash readers that were telling us this, and but Emily gravitated to the perfectionist one, and I didn't because I wasn't one. But I was squashed as a child, right? Just like in Baker, that's why I cry. And so we heard parents, we heard spouses, we heard former spouses.
Teachers.
I was getting there. We heard
Oh,
high
sorry.
school English teachers. We heard a half a dozen MFA instructors at college, and we both have MFAs, and that crushed me to think here's someone that's supposed to be encouraging these students to explore all the areas of creative writing, and to water that plant, and they crush them.
Yeah, and some of them didn't say like, "Oh, they crushed me," but they would say like, "I'm burned out." And I totally get that because grad school is a ton of work, and then afterwards you just like don't want to read anything, you don't want to write anything, you don't want to do any of that kind of intellectual work. And so that burnout can be so overwhelming as well. But yeah,
So,
it's just sad
well,
that
eh,
it's just
can I say something about
sad.
that? So
Yeah.
so that's true. I talked to 2 people that said that. They were just burned out, but that's
Mhm.
on them, is like, you know what I mean? And but the
Mhm.
like, am I looking for a victim? I don't know. I'm looking for an excuse, or a rationale to
Mhm.
absolve the writer of the thing. If 2 people said, "Yeah, I just got burned out," that's on them, and I understand it, just like how you explained it. But when someone actively tells you you're no good,
Yeah.
that's a different. An MFA professor should not be doing that.
Yeah, I didn't hear anybody say that, but I mean, Misty told us that.
Yeah, no, I had more than one person say they'd give me these things backed up. It was with red ink all over them, just like
Oh, yeah.
this big bloody piece of. I bled my story out on this piece of paper, and then they handed it back to me covered with blood with red ink.
Yeah.
And after I worked, all semester on it or all month on it or whatever,
Yeah.
that's not how you encourage people.
Yeah.
So
It's really hard because that also goes to one of the things I wanted to say about perfectionism that I forgot is that it is good to have that growth mindset and to go it can be better, right? And when you get feedback, it's like, yes, it can be better. And to think positively about that, like this is how I can improve. Um but I think when most people say perfectionism, it's more of a debilitating thing. Like it's not that growth mindset. It could be better. It's not good enough, and it never will be. And I'm stuck, and I don't know how to share. We had one person say like I wouldn't share anything if it wasn't perfect, right? But you're never gonna get that feedback if it's not perfect. Or sorry, if it's yeah, you're never gonna get that feedback if you're not willing to share it and being vulnerable.
You know, along those lines, it's not the flip side of that, but it's parallel with that. Blake Snyder, he said, if you're afraid to share something, you know that there's something wrong with it, and so
That's
you don't have
often true,
confidence
yeah.
in that document, and so you won't share it. But that's why you should share it, right? And
Yeah.
get feedback from others. So the fact that you don't want to should be the indicator that tells you that you should.
Yes, and sometimes it's a sometimes you don't know what's wrong with it and you don't know why you feel afraid to share it, but it yeah, usually it's because that's happened to me before. I was afraid to share something, and then when I did and I got the feedback, it was like, "Oh, that's why I was afraid because I knew that this problem existed, but I didn't want to actually face it."
You haven't shared anything of yours with me yet. Are you afraid?
I published that short story.
Oh, that's true.
It's online.
That's true.
But no, I
I
haven't
meant your
sent you anything.
novel. I meant one of your
No,
novels.
yeah, I haven't shared that yet just because I keep forgetting.
Oh, I thought
And I'm
maybe you were afraid.
still I have I've got some feedback that I want to work on editing, which is not perfectionism. It's
Mhm.
when you get feedback. So I'm not getting responses from agents, right? And if you're not getting responses from agents and then you get feedback that something could be better, then like I'm not going to just say, "Oh, well, it's good enough." I'm going to go, "Oh, no, it could be better." And I want an agent to respond, and so I'm going to keep working on it because I believe in the story, right? I think that's a different mindset. Do you agree?
Yes, but I mean, I agree for you. I don't agree for me. So, in that
Mm,
same conversation this morning
interesting.
that I won't bring up again, there are people who want this extra tool because I've sent out queries for 8 years and I've not gotten any response. Well, it might just be it's the wrong you've been sending it to the wrong person for 8 years because you're not studying the market or you're not studying the producers that do the stuff in the genre that you're sending out, and a tool isn't going to fix that for you. Like it,
Well, and if it
and
is your
I'm
writing,
not saying you're doing that. I'm just saying
right.
that people will say that.
Well, and if it is your writing, you need to learn to fix your writing without those tools as well. No, I get absolutely why you would say that. And there have been times when I have let projects go, despite perfectionism, my perfectionistic tendencies, just to say, you know what, this story wasn't the one, or it's not time for that one. I'm going to move on because I need to keep writing. And I know that the next one will be better. But this is one that I feel very committed to. And so I do have another novel that I am working on, but this one I'm trying to, take the feedback and do what I can with it.
I just want to read one to enjoy it. Like I'm not gonna pick it apart or anything.
Yeah.
I just want to enjoy and know you better, and I'll read it while
Yeah.
you're having a baby.
And it's a good process. It's been a good process for me because I do genuinely see improvements with each draft that I do. So I'm learning a lot through the revision. So it is good. Like it's okay to most authors do have to do several revisions. Like I'm not saying that let go of perfectionism and just let it be as good as it is. Like you can make it better. But
Right, but there are people. This is my life work. I've worked on it for
yes,
seriously for 15 years. I've worked on this screenplay. It's a
right.
hundred pages. Like the, at some point, it's done, dude.
Yeah, at some
And
point it is done.
there's another area of confidence that that comes up. I'm guilty of this area, but it's not for a lack of confidence. I don't query enough. Right? And
Mm,
so and it's not because 'cause I'm not afraid to share anything. And, I just don't get around to it, or it's not as fun, or, like,
yeah, it's
I
not.
don't know.
No, I've taken a break from querying too, and like I know there are more people I can send it to, so I just need to go send it. I want to ask if we can go back a little bit to the other people squashing your creativity. How do you get over that?
First of all, I'm glad you went back to it because I wish we would have asked Lauren's parents, just like I wanted to ask your dad. And I want to ask William Bernhardt because he has creative kids. What did you do to make it blossom? Right?
Well, they were
Because
so proud of her too. Like they were the ones who were like, "She's a writer and look what she's done." You
and
know, they were
I
so
feel like your
happy.
parents were that way,
Mhm.
and I think William Bernhardt is that way, and so I'm sorry. What was the question?
How do you recover?
From people squashing you?
Yeah, like what advice would you give to those people who came by and were like, "I just haven't had the encouragement."
Well, first of all, hang out with different people.
Yeah.
Now, if it's your professor, don't take that professor again. Try a different professor. Right? There's, there's more than one. There might not be more than one creative nonfiction professor at your college, but there's more than one fiction professor. There's more than one poetry professor, right?
Not at mine. Not in my
Well,
undergrad.
at Belmont or like University of Tennessee, Knoxville, there
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And so find one and I'm not saying that they specifically said those schools that they got squashed at those schools, but there's more than one. So find a different one. Find a different writers group. group. So that would be my first thing is because you become like the 5 people that you hang out with the most, start hanging out
Yeah.
with a different crowd.
That's really good. Yeah.
And then this seems limiting, so correct me on it. But I would so that was my second answer. My first answer is like, and I've talked about this before, I'm not going to be a singer. I'm not going to go play basketball. I already know that I'm good at I'm I know I can write a pilot that's great. I know that I can write a rom-com that's great. I pushed myself to write a supernatural thriller because I hadn't done it before, and I'm not going to write horror, and so I did one. And I know I can draw, publish a monthly cartoon in WriterCon magazine. I know people like it. I know I got paid for it 20 years ago, and so there's just things I know that I'm good at, and so you can say Susan Grigsby that you'll never amount to anything because you can't draw, but I can. So like, there's just some like there's just some of it is just evidence. Oh, what if someone told her that she can't write? Oh, yes, I can. It's right here.
Mhm.
Not only did I write, I sold a bunch of them on my birthday.
Yeah.
So you have sometimes you just have to believe your own eyes. I guess does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep. That's really good.
Does that work?
Um
Does that work? Like if you said I'm not good at something and I'm like, just believe your own eyes. Yes, you are.
I don't know cuz I'm very self-critical, so it is difficult, but
Okay, so I was telling Matthew Huddleston.
oh yeah, we
Um,
forgot Matthew Huddleston also came by. He's going to be a future guest on the podcast. He just released his book.
uh, true. We forgot the biggest star that came by, the celebrity of all celebrities. Baby Brooks stole the thunder out of my life-changing experience of meeting my hero of all time. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you're not allowed to say ladies and gentlemen anymore. I got to meet Paddington. There he is, right there. And here's a picture of me meeting
Yes.
Paddington. Sorry, Matthew Huddleston, you're no Paddington. All right, so what was the question? What like
You said
what?
I was talking to Matthew.
He has dinner with not dinner. He has lunch with your father very often. And
Mhm.
they're both very proud of you and
Aw.
your dad talks about to Matthew about how proud that he is of you. And we've talked about that before, that you use the word pride and proud all the time, and I don't ever use it because I never had anyone to tell me. I never had anyone when I was that age to tell me that I was proud, and so that they were proud of me. I don't know. I guess that's more of the same point I was making. Where hang around with different people then.
Yeah. But I mean,
Oh,
I will say you can have supportive parents and still be a very insecure person, apparently. But it does
oh,
help.
that's also true. No, so now, I mean that part that all everything I just said was true. But what I started to say was, I told him what a good editor you were when we were talking about because he said how you gave him good notes in the writing group, and I'm like, yeah, I like, because I wrote the even numbered chapters and Emily wrote the odd numbered chapters. Her notes made me a better writer, which I said earlier in this episode.
Aw.
But they were very like there were a lot of them, and I gave you like 2 notes. But I think the 2 notes that I gave you made those chapters better.
For sure.
So when I said I was talking earlier about like I'm not a good singer, I'm not a good basketball player, but I'm a good drawer or a good writer. You're a good editor,
Aw,
and
thank you.
and you should know that, and you have evidence of that because you have edited more than your fair share of books.
That's true.
So do you believe that? Or are you
Yeah.
a perfectionist about it?
Yeah, I mean, I do think I
Mhm.
you know what's funny is I actually feel very confident about editing
I thought
and
so.
nonfiction. I feel when I wrote that article for WriterCon, I think I wrote that in 2 hours maybe and then edited it and then turned it in. Like I was just like, this is good. I don't even need anybody to read it first. I'm just like, this is good. I don't and I feel that way about my blogs. I never feel that way about my fiction. Isn't that weird?
That is weird, but it's not surprising because for 10 years, it's not 10 years, it's 9.5 years. Um, you've blogged on a weekly basis. It's not weekly, it's mostly weekly. um, that's a terrible Emily impression. Um, uh, you've done it for 10 years. So of course you're good at it. And if that were me, if I wasn't good at it, I wouldn't do it for 10 years, right? I would go
Right,
find something I
yeah.
am good at. And so I don't I can't explain why you're not as confident in your fiction. You're a good writer and a good editor. You should be confident in your fiction as well. If you can edit Matthew's or not you didn't edit it, but if you can give good notes on Matthew's fiction,
Yeah.
you certainly
Yeah.
can give it on your own fiction.
It's true.
Um
I mean, it's
so
true. I should
great.
be more confident.
That's a great impression of yourself. Um that leads me to my next area. Can I bring it up
Yes.
about
Yep.
other people validating your thing? And so
Yeah.
this is point number I don't know what point we're on 3.2-1. When we started getting reviews, those were great. I told someone this last night too. And it's nice to have a nice review, but we already knew the book was good,
Mhm.
right? So what was cool about the reviews was they got what we were trying to do.
Yes, that
And so
was
that
the
that was more
key, yeah.
important than hey, I liked it.
Yes.
Um they got what we were trying to do. And then
Mhm.
when people would come up to our booth and they were hemming and hawing about what they're not good at, I would hand them the book and I would be like, tell me which of these chapters apply to you. And they'd be like, oh, when this happens. Oh, when that happens. Check, check, check. Like they would see themselves in the table of contents without even reading the book.
Yep.
Well, that was the same as getting a review that got what we were trying to do. I got to see 300 people say, "Oh yeah, I needed this," and that I think that was validation of God told us how to make this table of contents. I'm for 100% convinced because and I had left you a message about that before because we didn't know how we were going to do it at first. And we had your topics that you had started on for your blog, but are they always going to start with when, or are they going to start with if, or whatever? And we just kind of went back and forth. And I think Holy Spirit was in the middle of that. And we wound up with this and we saw I mean, we've done book signings before, but not with that many people all at once. We saw it like with our own eyes. Again, talking about seeing it with your own eyes, that what we were trying to do, that we did it. And people
Yeah.
really needed it and wanted it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, I think this is cool or I think that's cool. It was like they're like, oh, I like
Most when I said that people like if they came to the booth looking at the book, it was like you could see in their eyes, "Oh, that looks like something for me." And then they would read the table of contents and be like, "Oh, yep."
yeah, even if they would pick it up just to, and you remember this because we debated over the subtitle for a while, but I felt like it had to have giving in it, and then
Mhm.
the words "no matter what" came out of your mouth, And
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah. So Holy Spirit was like, yeah, put no matter what on there. And then we were like, giving what? And giving permission. How about that? And so all of that came up. People, even before you or I would say, look at the table of contents, they'd be like, oh yeah, giving myself permission. Oh,
Mhm.
it felt like it belonged to them. Like
Yeah.
before they even bought it, it felt like it belonged to them.
Yeah.
So what's the takeaway of that? Listen to Holy Spirit, or if you're not a Christian, listen to your instinct.
Yeah, well, and on the validation thing, I do think listening to feedback is important. Now, there can be different kinds. Like, there can be the people who are just gonna, we've already talked about this, but the people who talk you down and are just like, this isn't good enough. But if you can find the right people who are honest and know what you're trying to do, it can be really helpful. So, like, my parents have always read what, like, whenever I write a book, they're the first ones to read it, and they're very honest about, did I achieve what I set out to do? And one of the reasons why I've stuck so firmly with the book that I'm working on right now and sending to agents is because of their validation of, like, this is the one. And so I'm like, okay, I believe you. This is the one. This is I'm going to keep working on it because I've told myself not to give up, but also I've had the validation that, like, this is good enough. You shouldn't give up.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Are there Seinfeld hates that. Just ask the question. Don't ask for permission to ask the question. You just wasted time, and then now I'm wasting time talking about it. So this is the fourth one, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think when this one sells that the other three will change? Because then people will want your back work, right? And then do you think they will change in light of the sale of the number 4?
One of them. One
Okay.
of them I still have hope for, but it needs to be rewritten. But yes, to that one.
And the other two?
So the other so two of them I wrote in high school, and I have just said that's what I wrote in high school at the end. And then the other one is a middle grade novel that I would be willing to show to my children, but that's probably about it potentially, unless I rewrite that one too.
Well, all of them, once you're famous and you sell your first one, all of them will be rewritten.
Maybe. I think I have other books in me that I'd
Oh, okay.
rather do than resurface the ones that already weren't hitting as well
No,
as,
I totally get that. I have a
yeah.
script that's totally outlined, and I don't know, I got better stuff I can write than that one.
Yeah, I just believe because some authors do that. They'll publish their, their other stuff that's just not as good because they weren't as good of a writer when they wrote those. Every book of mine gets better, and so if I do try to publish those other ones, they're going to need major workup to fit the level that I'm at now.
Makes total sense.
Yeah. So there's one more category,
Okay.
and this maybe just need to be a whole episode on its own, which is, I just don't have time to write, or I just haven't been writing. And this is one that I relate to because and I haven't been able to share this until now, that since pregnancy, I'm only writing like the minimal amount, like my blog post, and that's pretty much it. I don't have the mental capacity at the moment to be writing much more than that. And I'm hoping that now that I'm at 12 weeks that that'll change. So I totally understand that. But also there is that point where it's a muscle, and if you stop, it's harder to get back. It's like if you stop using the treadmill, it's harder to get back on the treadmill, right? And I'm at that point where it's like, okay, I got to actually force myself to do this. I think we do need to have an episode about time because that's a big struggle for me, but what would you say to people who are just like, yeah, I just haven't written in a while, or I want to get back into it, but I'm not ready?
So your issue is 100% why speaking of Seinfeld, I agree with Seinfeld. You write every day. I know we have guests that disagree. I know some other people disagree. It can be garbage, but you should write something every day. Just like we had a creative writing professor in our booth who said about the taking out the parking lot and burning it. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And but that's why, because it exercises that muscle. And so I write something every day.
That's good.
It might not
Yes.
turn into I like to write something that will eventually turn into a product. And then if I'm really tired at night and I haven't written, I'll write on a legal pad and I won't be able to read it in the morning. But I wrote, and some of it's really good too. Like some of those late night 2 a.m. ones are like really good, and it'll be a future chapter in our next book, or it'll be an article for WriterCon. And then some of them, they were just me exercising. It was me on the treadmill.
I love that a lot because I think I and many other people put a lot of pressure on writing, like, oh, it has to be a product now. And I think just deciding to write every day is it takes off the pressure of it having to be perfect, takes off the pressure of it having to be part of anything, and just being like, okay, I'm exercising a muscle. When you exercise a muscle, there's no point other than exercising the muscle.
Right. It's
Like I've
process.
been working out because it feels good and it's healthy, and that's good. And that'll make me stronger the next time I work out. So I totally agree. And I've been like kind of disappointed in myself for taking such a long break. So I think that that's a really good way to ease back in is like, okay, I'll write something every day, even if it's 50 words.
I'm also not pregnant. So I mean that does come into play. So it's not that I'm not understanding,
Right, right.
um, but there are people that go, "Well, you just don't know how busy I am," and da da da. Well, dude, you have no idea how busy. Like we're not. It's not comparative busyness. I have 8 projects that I'm working on. Right? Is it
Yeah.
you have to carve out the? I guess that's point number 2. Is you have to carve out the time, or you won't. The,
Yeah.
the the example I just gave, there are times when I didn't carve out the time, or I carved out the time and I did something else instead. And then so that's why I'm doing it before I fall asleep at 4 in the morning or whatever. But I still make sure I do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's take the pressure off, take off the perfectionism side and just do it because yeah, it's an exercise. If you're preparing for uh back to sports because we know everything about sports, if you're preparing for a big game, like you exercise even if that exercise like you're not playing the game yet, but you're preparing for the game. So you may not be writing a
100%.
novel or a screenplay or a full-length poem or anything, but you're getting ready for it.
The idea I gave you for, I keep saying our next master class, but I don't think this would be a master class, but for our next duo class, team class, like I've already done research for it because I'm going to write an article. Not my classes don't match the article exactly because I want the class to extend from the article. I want the article to be the launching pad for the. But I already like started stuff on it. But uh, I try to make it an hour, but sometimes it's half hour, sometimes it's an hour and a half. But there's already work on it
Yes, and
a
that
little bit.
when I'm working on a novel, I try to keep it in my head every day by doing something, even if it's not going to end up in the book. You want to do something to keep it in your head so that you don't lose it and you don't lose that momentum. So I think that's really important.
The next point is we had this conversation at the end of one. I can't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday about the fake it till you make it
Yeah.
advice. And I'm trying to, we don't ever do scripts for these episodes, listeners, viewers, but I actually took notes for this one. I'm trying to read what I wrote. And so you had said something, it's not fake it till you make it. It's you try it and you do it and then you're like, "Oh, look, I could do that." Right? And so it because I don't believe in the fake it till you make it advice, but I do believe in go ahead and try it. Try
Mhm.
it at low stakes, and then once you do it, you're like, oh, I can do that. Look, I just did it. Whatever that thing is.
Yeah, if you want to be so what a lot of people do is they give themselves a schedule as if they are a full-time writer with deadlines. And if you do that, it doesn't mean that every time you sit down to write, you're writing professional writer level stuff, but you're telling yourself each time you do that that you can follow that schedule. And so there's a benefit I think to that, to just doing it and proving to yourself that you can do it.
Yeah, it's more like I don't know, self acu
Actualization.
actualization. Um, it's just it's proving your like you said, it's proving to yourself you did it. And I wish I would have learned that earlier in the day on Saturday or Sunday, whatever day it was, because there were people that then we got to say that to
Yeah.
after that whatever epiphany happened. There were people that we got to say that to, and I thought that it really helped them. And then the last thing that I wanted to say about the book was we sold a bunch of books, but we did not sell a single book. Like there was no
Yeah.
sales pitch. There was like it was like the easy I've sold other things in my life. It was like the easiest thing to sell because we didn't there was no sales pitch. And we're
Yeah.
not alone in that. There are other people who had no sales pitch, but there
We
were
just had conversations with people.
right.
We were like,
And
"So what are you writing?" or "Why aren't you writing?" Like we just had conversations and they connected.
yeah, 100%. And there were other people like us was people wanting to belong to our community and as they felt connected to us and they wanted something from us right. I didn't get to go hear Caitlin Cass, but I got this beautiful book from Caitlin Cass.
That cover is gorgeous.
And it's suffrage song and it's about the women's suffrage movement. And then look at this beautiful, she used my entire brand when she autographed it for me. She didn't just say John.
Oh.
I trained her well. and and but it was the same people. The people were there because they were the people were there for her, not like I didn't buy this. I didn't. Well, I do care about this topic, so like, I didn't buy the book for the topic, but I did. But I bought it because it was her, and like I really like her New York Times cartoons,
Yeah.
and it was the same thing. So these were 300 strangers that we talked to, but they got to know us and they wanted to be part of us, and so there wasn't any selling involved. That's all.
Yeah.
Just be
It's good.
your authentic self, and you don't have like because people will say, "Well, I've got this book finished, but I can't sell it." Well, why not? Just go be yourself. You can. We didn't do any sales pitches. We're just ourselves for 15 hours.
And if you so that here's some advice to come from that. So like that book came from our personal experiences and we knew that because we experienced these things that other people did too.
Hmm.
And I think if you are worried that nobody's going to care about what you're writing, nobody's going to connect, somebody's going to connect. I mean, we're all human and we all have very shared experiences. Somebody's going to connect to what you're writing. So I wouldn't worry about that at all.
I agree, 100%.
So what should our call to action be?
Do you have one?
No.
You're just waiting me.
I was
Um.
going to say write every day. Like even if it's
Uh,
50 words and I was going to take it on.
oh, okay. Then that's it,
And then I
man.
can I can come back next time and share how it went. Does that work?
Yeah, that works great because I want you to do that.
I do too. I really, really need the motivation. So I want
Um.
to do that.
I'm just
Even if it does revision count, because I have a lot of revision to do. So
Oh, I
do
mean,
you, when you
if you
say
didn't
you,
if you didn't have the call to action, would you not do the revision? Is it the call to action going to force you to do the revision, or would you have done it anyway?
probably, but maybe I should be doing both.
See, here's a lesson, viewers, listeners. Don't plan your podcast. Like when I, this has been a great episode so far, but this has also been the most planned one.
So when you say write every day, do you count revision in that, or is it like I revised and then I'm also going to do my daily writing?
So I would say write something fresh, new
Okay,
every day.
I think that's
But
good. I think that's good because it
uh,
uses a different part of your brain.
correct.
Yeah,
Seinfeld will revise a single line joke 30 times, and you can see the legal pad where he's gone through it 30 times.
yeah,
But the next day it's a new joke.
yeah, yeah.
So, and then he has a big calendar and he puts an X on it every day.
So listeners, write every day and tell us about it. So share with us in the show notes at writebettertogether.com/podcast, where you can find all of our episodes and respond to this episode in the comments. Or you can share it on social media wherever we share this episode. Or if it's like months later and you can't find either of those, you can email us at writebettertogethernow@gmail.com.
And I want to say that I am honored that, and so is Emily, but I won't speak for her, that you spend an hour. This episode is gonna be 2 hours with us because you have so many choices, and it just means so much to me, and it's
It really does.
genuine, and I want to underscore that. And then 300 people came through and talked to us, and it was just wonderful.
That's what we do it for, is the connections. So yes, we do appreciate it. And since we're talking about that, if you want
Yes.
other people to find us, then write a review for us on Spotify or Amazon Podcasts or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. Subscribe. All of those things help other people find us.
Good. That's a good one. Do you care about this is a new segment called Does Emily Care About It? No. Do you care about a specific time period? Like, is there something some people are drawn to medieval, some people are drawn to
That's a really good question.
mid-century.
My husband is obsessed with the Roman Legion, as everybody is, but especially he's obsessed with Greek mythology and Norse mythology and all of Egyptian mythology. Obsessed with all of that.
They're
I
just
actually don't feel like I do.
you don't have a period you relate to? Old soul.
I think so most of my books end up being almost like Stone Age or a little
Wow.
bit after, because like inspired by, because I like very primitive experiences and like people living off of the land and like not having a lot of technology. So you could say that I'm interested in that, but I don't like research it all the time. I just like writing low technology stories.
Wow. So I'm glad I asked that question. that question. So when I said earlier about the content of Suffered
Yeah,
Song,
yeah.
so I've written 3 screenplays that have taken place between 1899 and 1908. So that turn of the century period, I really care about.
Yeah.
In Edwina Bergman and the Narrative Fiction podcast, she's from 100 years ago, and she's like, we just got the right to vote. And so, and because I'm a feminist and I think that's important, and I think every voice matters. So it's interesting that one of my, like, you love Brandon Sanderson, one of the people that I love, Caitlin Cass, it's interesting that she has a whole book on a period that I care about.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So I don't know. All right.
I actually really do. I really connected growing up to like Anne of Green Gables. I guess that would be Edwardian period.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
maybe it's because they do a lot of like they're raising their own food, like they're sewing their own clothes. Like I think I just like those low technology stories. Okay,
Before I'm gonna have you prep for the game so you have time to think about it. So we can do all the other stuff before the game happens.
okay.
But so I want you to think of something that you excelled at, that you could explain to someone. Hey, I did this thing really well. That's all. You need to have that in your brain when you play the game.
Okay. Hey, Jon Meyers,
Yes.
can you think of any examples where entertainment has shaped human perception of something in the world? That's the only way I could think of how to ask this question to bring up this topic. Okay, he's holding up Paddington 2.
Paddington 2, that's not the script. That's the little kids book, but um, that's the novelization. Best script in the last 50 years.
I really need to
Um,
watch that.
so perception of entertainment. Yes, I think that the, I think that Archie and Jughead and Betty and Veronica existence in Riverdale ever since the 50s impacted the culture in a certain way in the 50s. And then when Riverdale was popular in the last 5 years, 10 years, I think it impacted the culture. Same characters, but they were in 2021 and 2020. And I think they impacted the culture in the same way.
Awesome. So I'm only going to bring this part up because this isn't the main topic, but I'm going to bring it up because you mentioned Seinfeld like multiple times in this episode.
Yes.
But we're coming up on Thanksgiving, and I don't know if you've ever heard people say this, but a lot of people will be like, "Oh, the tryptophan in that turkey. I'm gonna take a nap.
Yeah.
It made me so sleepy."
Yep.
Well, we that's because of a Seinfeld episode.
Really?
And I couldn't find the source that said, oh, so, okay, this may not be true. I know that there is a Seinfeld episode where they say this. And I know that there is a perception that turkey makes you sleepy. And somewhere in the internet that I couldn't find again was them saying that it was connected to Seinfeld because of that episode where they say that. And people just were like, they took on that phrase and like believed it when it's a myth. It's more likely for the other foods in your Thanksgiving dinner to make you sleepy than the turkey.
So you're saying that when we were children, because you're 2 months older than I am, that our parents never said pre Seinfeld, our parents never told us that turkey will make you sleepy?
Well, I don't know, did they?
I'll call your
So
dad.
tryptophan can make you sleepy, but there are a lot of amino acids in turkey that would keep that from being a very strong effect, whereas there are
What
other
about
foods that would have a stronger effect, as
what
well
about
as
going
carbs. So
what about going swimming after you eat a turkey sandwich?
don't go swimming after you eat, it'll give you cramps. That's how I was raised.
I thought it was because you would fall asleep underwater.
Oh, goodness. Oh, man. That's a very strong sedative. Okay. So, what I wanted to talk about, and I learned this from a video, so I will share the video in the show notes, is actually the way that we in media and in like in any media, theater, film, books, portray ghosts.
Ah!
So I boo.
I gotta go.
So this I'm not talking about actual ghosts because I don't believe in ghosts. Oh, look, there are pictures of ghosts. But there are visual ideas that we have about ghosts. I'm actually curious where that one came from. The like white, like raindrop shaped thing. Did it come from Mario? I don't know.
Charlie Brown.
Was it Charlie Brown?
Yes.
You had an
You know
answer for
how it's the white sheet with just the two black holes
Yeah,
in it?
maybe that is.
It is 100%. That's
Awesome. So
that's
that's
Charlie Brown
one.
right there.
Well, there's another visual that we have of ghosts being transparent. And this goes all the way back to Charles
Dickens.
Dickens
Ha! I got it
because
right.
Charles Dickens described the ghosts as being transparent. But do you know why he described them as being transparent?
Well, first of all, was that my question that you'd never ask? Because I got that one right. I said Dickens before you said it.
Well, sure. That
Or are
wasn't.
you going to ask me a different question?
I asked you if you knew of any media that
Oh,
shaped.
that's true. Were there ghosts on Riverdale?
So the reason why is because in the 19th century, well, it says actually late 18th century into the 19th century, they started doing these shows. So this is actually an effective theater where they would project images onto the stage, using mirrors and lights to create kind of a spectral, transparent image and to portray ghosts, especially in things like Shakespeare. Right? Shakespeare has a tons of ghosts in his stories. And so they would use these mirror images. And so then Dickens was, you see that on stage and you're like, oh, ghosts are transparent. Dickens described ghosts as transparent. And now, like in tons of films and books, we're still seeing ghosts described as transparent. So I say that not necessarily to talk about ghosts, but to talk about the power of media in shaping our perception of things that before that wouldn't have even been conceptualized in people's brains. So there you go.
So in Turn of the Screw, it starts. A guy gets up in the party and goes, "Here's a ghost story I just heard
A
from
lot of
another guy."
so many
What?
stories started that way.
But correct. And
Yeah.
so it's what you're talking about. It impacts the culture. But in Turn of the Screw, it's not even his story. He's like, hey, this other guy told me the story, and we don't know who that other guy is. And so
Interesting.
there's nowhere, because I wrote a paper on this, and there's nowhere of who that other person is. I contend, Dr. Sandy Hughes, I'm gonna have to send you this clip. In Turn of the Screw, Miles does not die at the end, I contend.
Oh, okay.
I contend that whatever spirit was in him leaves him,
Mm.
right? And everyone said that I was crazy in that class. And because he was clearly dead in the movie. And I'm like, I'm not talking about the movie, I'm talking about the book. And plus, it's a ghost story. And then towards the end of that semester, there were people like, well, I'm an English major and I find that hard to believe. But if Jon Meyers is correct, this might have, right? And because I wasn't an English major, I was a film major. So, anyway, yes, Turn of the Screw. And it starts as a ghost story. From it, we don't know whose ghost story it is. I find that part fascinating.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about it.
All right, so that's all I got. Media
Okay.
shapes our perception.
I have to say, I don't believe in ghosts, that there's only humans,
I don't
angels,
believe.
cherubims, or demons that are fallen angels.
I
I
also
don't
don't
believe in
believe in
ghosts.
ghosts. But that means it's time for the final act.
Yes, and your prize today is this thing of mints from the British Library in 2018. It's probably full of chemicals and it's definitely 6 years old.
It's a
So
nice tin, though,
you don't want to eat any of them. Look how beautiful
but it's
that
a
is from
cute
the British.
tin.
Yes. And it makes a cool sound. All right. So today's game is called Wiki. How'd you do that, Emily? So what are you going to tell us about how you did something successfully?
So, can it be a broad thing? Like, I was going to say I was just very good at school.
Would there be a wiki how of how to be good at school? Would that be an appropriate
Okay,
one?
I see. Um, how to write a paper. I was really
Okay.
good at writing papers.
All right, how to write a paper. So I have 6 slides. Your topic is how to write a paper. You will narrate these slides that are illustrating on how to write a paper.
Oh my
And they are actual WikiHow slides from the same presentation. And so you can't lose. You just have to use these slides to teach how to write a paper. And
Okay.
then at the end I'll ask you what it really was a slide from. And I want you to play this game with me sometime because this sounds like the most funnest game. Okay. All right. So you're going to teach using these wiki slides how to write a paper. There's 6 of them. You have to say something for all 6 of them to win the mints. And just tell me when you're ready to go to the next one. You got to say something, a couple
but
sentences for
but does
each
it have
one.
to be related to the image?
You're in charge.
What? No, you're in charge. You came up with
Yes,
these
you.
slides.
These are the images that you errantly prepared to how to write a paper. Yes, you have to make them fit the topic somehow. That's the game.
All right.
Don't be a literalist.
So you are okay. How to write a paper. Step 1. Brainstorm with friends.
Oh,
Talk
step 1 is brainstorm with friends.
talk to someone about your topic idea. If you don't have classmates with you at the time, you can talk to family and friends to decide if your topic is worth writing about.
Did you Google something?
Slide 2. No.
Ah,
Oh. Step 2. Research your topic
hmm.
using the internet, your library, or interviewing people
Oh,
such as experts in that area of expertise.
very good.
Thank you. Step 3. I haven't been describing what these pictures are to our listeners.
Oops.
The first one was like, it looked like a couple talking to a lady. And then it was a child talking to a woman. And now it's what looks like a father and son, and the father is playing guitar. Um, so you have outlined, you have brainstormed, you have researched. Now you are going to outline, but you are going to do this via song.
Whoa.
So sing out the ideas that come to you, and create an outline based on your research. That's what I got.
You're doing great.
Next step, step 4.
This is my favorite game ever.
The next slide, it looks like a mom and a child, maybe a little girl, at the zoo looking at elephants.
This is quite the presentation you prepared, Emily.
Step 4 is the actual writing process. If you don't, if you need extra inspiration for your
Mm.
writing, especially with descriptions, you might want to go out into the wild and experience the things that you're writing about. So, for instance, if you were to write about elephants and you're describing them in detail, you might want to just go there and experiencing yourself all of the sensory details, the five senses, so that your descriptions can come out strong.
Very good. These people apparently went all the way to Japan or something because there's a pagoda over
Oh, there
there.
is.
All right.
Step 5. I have to play this game with you. Oh my gosh. Okay, so now we have what looks like a mother and a son. There's always parents in this, I've noticed. A mother and a son, and the son is blindfolded. The mom has her eyes closed, and the son is gifting her a frog. Um,
Yes.
oh man. In the writing, in this step of writing,
Yes.
you might get stuck with your draft. Oh, I know. You After you've written your draft, you have to take a break before you go back to revise. So take a break, play with some frogs,
Ew.
do something completely different to get your mind off of writing.
It's interesting that you said before we go to the next slide that you said gifting a frog because the subtitle for this was think of unusual gifts for that slide. It really was. That's an unusual gift, and I don't know why you got a blindfold on. All right, the
I
final slide, right?
okay.
Yeah, 6. Here we go.
Now it looks like a teacher and a student, and they're reading our book right anyway.
So how appropriate that
It
you're
is.
saying how to write.
So after you've taken that break, you are going to revise and you are going to ask for or sorry, no, you're not going to revise. You're going to ask for feedback from your teacher. You're going to get that feedback and apply it to your revision. And you're going to write anyway because even if your first draft was rough, now
And
you've written the
then
paper.
how do you feel about how your performance, Emily?
I think I did okay with improv. Better than I
I think
expected.
I think you did fantastically. I think you win
Aw.
these mints. Now,
I
for a
love that
bone
game, and we are going to play it again. I
that was the
guarantee.
best game ever. Um,
That is so good.
for the for the best or for a bonus prize,
Oh,
um, the bonus prize, and this was sitting here on the desk in front of me the entire time. You will win
there
this
you go.
poster of Marriage Bites signed to me, even though you already have one signed to you. Of Ashley's, I think it was literally right here on the desk the whole
That's
time.
hilarious.
What was the real WikiHow? What was it really?
Was that
That was
just
a real
one?
one. Yeah, that was one
It looked
for
like
real.
so many different things.
I know, but it was for real. It's a real one.
Let's see. There were
And that really was the caption, give an unusual gift. If anyone gives me a frog, they don't know me.
how to be a does it have something to do with relationships?
It does. And you mentioned at like minute 2 of this podcast, you mentioned kind of the same topic. How about that?
Connection,
You've
connecting with others.
No, the relation thing that you just said. Like we're ending the podcast how unbeknownst to you how we started it. Unbeknownst to me, couldn't have orchestrated this if I wanted to. And
When
you
did I
said
say
gifting
something about relationships?
during host chat.
It's not about
You've already
connecting with other people.
Nope. I mean, tangentially it is, but you've already won. Just Take a stab at it.
Oh, I have no idea. That's all that's coming to my brain.
Well, you gotta guess something.
That was my guess. That's all.
It was how to be a good aunt or uncle. And you had said earlier about your nieces and nephews. What are the
Oh.
odds? What are the odds of you saying so? Those the younger people were not children. Well, they were children, but they weren't sons and daughters. They were nieces and nephews.
Oh.
And I don't know why you would be a good aunt or uncle if you gave someone a frog. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Well,
Well,
we couldn't
couldn't
have done it
done
without
it
you.
without you people that came and saw us and came and watched us on the thing.